Hey there guys, what's up? My name is Hayden McKenzie. Welcome to episode 11 of With Hayden. In today's episode, we are going to be discussing an unofficial trilogy of films that have come out in the last, 3 years, known as the Nick Cage trilogy, to me anyway. The first two I'll be talking about on my own, and the third I'll be talking about with my buddy Tristan. So stay tuned for that. The three films that we're going to be discussing today are Mandy, which came out in 2018 and was directed by Panos Cosmatos. The second film is The Color Out of Space, which came out in 2019 and was directed by somebody. I don't know who, and I definitely don't remember. And the third film is Willy's Wonderland, which came out this year and was also directed by somebody. I don't know their name, and frankly, I don't care. So Nick Cage. Okay, let's talk about Nick Cage for a little bit. Nick Cage is one of the most infamous actors working today for many reasons. I mean, everybody knows about him. Everybody loves him to a degree. And a lot of people hate him, but he's sort of gained this sort of traction to where, I mean, he's in so many films a year. And almost all of them, or at least there's a few gems that get picked out of there, are sort of cemented into cult circles, cult film circles. And three of the three films that I've chosen today are exactly that. So I guess we'll just get started here with Mandy. Mandy is, well, I have the Blu-ray right here, is a primal psychedelic rage scream of a movie, according to Slash Film. And you know what? I'm gonna have to agree with the poll quote on this one. This is probably one of the craziest films I have ever seen. It goes so inexplicably hard for absolutely no reason. Okay, so I saw this film for the first time in 2018 when I think I was 14 years old when I saw this film. I might have been 15. And Jesus Christ, the first time I saw it, I was sort of shell-shocked. You know, I didn't really know what to think of it for quite some time. All I could really think was, that was great. I loved it. I have no idea what happened. I think I'm entering into psychosis now. And that's exactly how it is. I mean, part of me doesn't even know how to describe this movie. The best way that I can describe it is, it's like if you took a comic arc out of Heavy Metal Magazine. Those of you familiar with Heavy Metal Magazine will know what I'm talking about. Known for very graphic, gory, dirty, stylish, sort of pulpy comics. If you took a comic arc out of Heavy Metal Magazine and turned it into a live-action film, that's effectively what Mandy is. It draws so much inspiration from 80s, 70s and 80s science fiction novels, and of course, pulp rags like heavy metal, and a lot of inspiration from even more modern stuff like the films of Rob Zombie. It makes for a very surreal, ethereal, disturbing experience. So, I'm thinking right now, I'm thinking about this film. It's ruminating in my head. And I don't even know how to put what I have to say about it into words. I do love this movie. And you obviously came here for me to talk about Nick Cage. So I suppose I could talk about him first. He does a fine job in this movie. I don't think it's anything particularly outstanding or special. Definitely not Oscar worthy, but he does what he does best, and that is screaming. Certainly screams and yells a lot. In fact, in the second half of the film, he has either almost no dialogue or no dialogue at all, and that's a very interesting choice because in the first half, he's quite talkative. So the plot of this film is Nick Cage and his wife, Mandy, live in a cabin out in the middle of the woods. Now, I believe this takes place in the 80s. They live right next to Camp Crystal Lake, or maybe not Camp Crystal Lake, but they live next to Crystal Lake, which is an obvious Friday the 13th reference if I've ever seen one. And they just live a very peaceful life out in the woods. Mandy, it is implied that Mandy has had some sort of past trauma. She has scars on her face. There are a couple scenes dedicated to her talking about experiences in her past. And Nick Cage is sort of a blank slate of a character, and I think that's intentional. He works for a lumber company. He's a lumberjack. We see in the opening of the film, he's sawing down trees with a chainsaw, getting airlifted in and out of the forest. And they live a very quiet life, a very happy life, watching cheesy movies on their TV and eating cheddar goblin. So, basically, one night when Mandy is walking around in the forest, she runs into a cult leader named, is it Jedediah or Jeremiah? I think it's Jeremiah. Runs into a cult leader named Jeremiah, who basically is the leader of a cult of crazy bikers who have made their own LSD, which is so strong and potent, and I don't know much about drugs, so I don't know the right words to use, but such a potent type of LSD that they take it and immediately their brain is just gone, and they turn into these like weird, almost cannibalistic type zombies. Like, they're subhuman. And a lot of the cult leaders, or not cult leaders, cult members in the film, wear this insane, like, spiky, almost like football gear. So you got like the big, what the hell? I don't know anything about anything. What the hell do you call the football shit? Like the shoulder pads and things like that with huge 3-foot rusty spikes sticking out of them all over them. Same with their helmets, and they ride spike-covered ATVs and motorcycles. And the only way that Nick Cage can describe them in the film is crazy evil. Or Jesus freaks. He does call them Jesus freaks once or twice. So this cult leader sees Mandy walking through the woods and thinks, you know what, I want that. So the cult kidnaps Mandy, and this is full spoilers, by the way, and eventually kills her. And Nick Cage is dead set on revenge, so he forges his own axe and goes on an absolute gory, neon, loud killing spree that lasts pretty much the entire second half of the movie. Now that's a pretty simple concept, but what really highlights it, what really takes it off the ground, is the style of everything. Mandy is one of the most beautifully shot and stylistic films that I have ever seen, I would say. And it's definitely a case of style over substance, but with something like this, I don't really mind, you know? I mean, so long as you know what you're getting into before you watch it, it really doesn't bug me that much. I mean, even the first time I saw this, I wasn't expecting something like high art, you know? I was expecting just pure, shameless, unadulterated Pulp Fiction, and that's exactly what I got. So, you know, I mean, I love it. The first half of the film is much slower than the second half in terms of pacing. The first hour of the film is dedicated to building all the characters through a series of very long, quiet, drawn-out scenes. For example, like I said earlier, there are several scenes of Mandy and... Does Nick Cage's character even have a name? I don't know. I think he's credited as Red. I think his name is Red. And a large majority of the first hour is characters talking to each other, not necessarily delivering exposition or anything, but just sort of getting to know the characters, so that way when Mandy eventually dies, there is quite a bit of emotion in that, and that's a very haunting scene. Nick Cage genuinely does a terrific job in that scene. When Mandy is killed in quite a gruesome way, I must say, she's put into a bag, and I don't even want to like talk about it because it's gives me the heebie-jeebies. And while revenge is a very animalistic thing, you can almost see where he's coming from in this film. You can almost see why he did it, because they being the cult, just so brutally fuck Nick Cage up. They stab him with like a rusty blade. They tie him up using barbed wire around his hands and his mouth, which, by the way, the makeup and prosthetics in this, ooh, oh my god, so bloody and awesome. He definitely has a clear-cut motivation that is established for the second half, and frankly, the first and second half of the film are so clearly distinguishable, to the point where I don't even know if this movie has 3 acts. It just seems like it has 2, setup and payoff. But yeah, very distinguishable. In fact, the title card to the film doesn't even show up until over an hour and 10 minutes in, which is surprising, to me anyway. I love when films do that, play with the form in very simple ways, like Gaspar Noé putting the end credits at the beginning of Irreversible, or things like that. And right after that title card, it's like, okay, now we're getting in with the incredible score by Jóhann Jóhannsson. Rest in peace. This was actually the last film that he scored before he passed away. It's very sad. But the punchy electronic score by Jóhann Jóhannsson is just kicking, going hard, and Nick Cage is driving around in a big car screaming, running people over, stabbing people. At one point he lights a cigarette off of a severed head, which is, fucking awesome. And it all leads to the final showdown with him and the cult leader. And throughout the film up until this point, he acts like he's holier than thou, which obviously, because he thinks that he is. And he tries to assert dominance over Mandy, tries to win her over, tries to have sex with her, and all Mandy does is just laugh in his face, and it's a great scene. He removes his robe, we see his full cock and balls, just unadulterated, and Mandy just laughs hysterically for like a minute and a half, and it's terrifying, but so good. And in this scene, obviously his demeanor is broken, and he becomes very embarrassed, starts yelling at everybody, doesn't know what to do, and that happens at the end of the film as well. Nick Cage has murdered literally everyone in his path to get to this man, and he's trying to act like, oh, I'm God, you're nothing to me, you're not even worth my spit. And Nick Cage goes to kill him, and he breaks down in tears. He's like, I'm sorry, man, I'll suck your goddamn dick. And okay, I know I've spoiled a lot of this film already, but if you haven't seen the film, I'm not going to tell you how it all ends, because oh my god, that was the coolest shit I've ever seen in any movie. So yeah, that's Mandy. I don't really know what else to say about it. Panos Cosmatos does a very good job behind the camera. Like I said, the style of this film is so memorable and so singular. Like you could show me one frame, even a very obscure frame from this film, and I would be like, oh, that's from Mandy. It's such an instantly recognizable style. I haven't seen his other film from, I think, 2009, Beyond the Black Rainbow. I have not seen that film, although I am greatly looking forward to it. I might talk about that sometime in the future. Yeah, Nick Cage does pretty good, I would say, especially with the material, because if ever there was a movie that needed Nick Cage to go full Nick Cage, it's this one. And when it has a purpose behind it, when he's playing a character that is obviously not quite right to begin with, it definitely fits. So yeah, Mandy, I'm gonna give this 2 different scores. So we're gonna give the actual rating of the film and the Nick Cage rating. And I have a different Nick Cage rating system than I think most people do. So Mandy, I'm gonna give the film an 8 out of 10 overall. But for Nick Cage, I'm gonna give him a 9. 9 out of 10 for Nick Cage on this one. The next film on our roster for today is 2019's The Color Out of Space, directed by Richard Stanley. Came out in 2019. Richard Stanley, I looked him up. I have not heard of any other films that he's made, so I don't have much to say in terms of his reputation. All I have to say is what I think of this film, and that is nothing very kind. Okay, so I did not rewatch this film. I've seen this movie once. In fact, I bought it on 4K just to check it out, because I was hearing some things about it. This seems like it was definitely marketed as a follow-up to Mandy. I mean, obviously not like a sequel, but completely different creative team and everything. But with the reception that Mandy got, it being like this cult film with visual flair, sort of like a weird, heady, psychedelic tone. This film was definitely marketed the same way, right off the coattails of Mandy. And I'm going to say right now that is totally not justified. These are 2 totally different beasts. And The Color Out of Space, honestly, it's kind of fucking boring. If I'm being totally honest, it's kind of fucking boring. So like I said, I only watched this movie once, and that was like a year ago. So take everything that I say with a grain of salt. But, okay, I'm going to see if I can even remember anything about this. So, the film is based off of a H.P. Lovecraft short story of the same name. And I haven't read the original, the source material. I haven't read any of H.P. Lovecraft, actually. But he seems like a very interesting character, so I may check him out in the future. I do like reading. I'm not just into movies. I do like reading, play a couple video games. I like long walks on the beach. Music, and the plot of it basically goes that a meteorite lands in the front yard of a family's home that may or may not be radioactive, may or may not have some sort of alien powers to it. And the father of this family, it's played by Nick Cage, obviously, who sort of downplays it the whole time, is like, okay, it's not like a big deal, but it's fucking up my yard. And okay, I'm having a lot of trouble. I'm having a lot of trouble remembering anything about this. And there's a daughter who talks to this guy who comes to take photos of the meteorite, and she is romantically interested in him, I think. And this guy that the daughter has the hots for goes and talks to Tommy Chong. No joke, Tommy Chong from Cheech and Chong is in this movie, and discusses the meteorite, I think. And Tommy Chong is like this sage stoner type guy who tells him like, man, it's got powers or something. And I'll tell you what, I don't remember jack shit about this. So basically, obviously the meteorite has powers, and the family has a farm. They live on a farm or a ranch with something, and they herd alpacas. And there's a scene in the film in which Nick Cage is having a conversation whilst milking an alpaca, which is cool. And so the meteorite starts to fuck with the environment. The trees start turning weird colors, and the the alpaca sort of turns into a weird mutant type of guy, which is riveting. And eventually it all goes to shit. Everything starts turning purple and white and starts blowing up, and the mom and the son of the family like melt together, and it's really disgusting. And then the movie ends. I really don't remember shit about this. I'm really sorry. So there's really one thing that I can give this movie credit for, and that is the makeup and prosthetics are, again, pretty impressive. Obviously, the gore and everything is quite extreme, quite over the top. Like I say, two people are fused together into this disgusting mutant, and it is quite horrific. It's pretty gross to look at. They're like vomiting, and really gets me off my rocker. But other than that, there's pretty much nothing to say about this movie, nothing to really compliment about this movie. It's just a wet blanket. I don't really like the way it's shot. It was shot with like pretty state-of-the-art cameras, so it was shot in 4K. The 4K Blu-ray that I have, it's native 4K, and in terms of resolution, it looks great. A lot of dimension to the image. The highlights are very bright. It's colorful. Although I don't think there's any HDR on it, actually, which is interesting. But yeah, otherwise there was just absolutely fucking nothing to get behind in this movie. It's very boring visually. And really, the most disappointing part about it is Nick Cage. I mean, he does yell in this movie. I'll give it that. He certainly does yell quite a bit. Except what worked so well about him acting like a fucking crazy person in Mandy is that it was actually warranted, because not only is the whole tone of that film very sort of uneasy and kind of wacky, the character itself in Mandy is clearly, a little off from the beginning, and he doesn't start really hamming it up until the second half, when he's gone through this horrible tragedy and drops acid and is clearly starting to go insane. But in this film, he hams it up a bit, sure, but ultimately it's all for naught, because it's just like this normal guy with a wife and kids who is screaming like a maniac, and it's not like funny, it's just kind of cringe. That's really the best way I can describe this movie. It's not funny, it's not cool, it's just kind of cringe. And ultimately I think it's probably the worst Nick Cage performance out of the bunch today, which is surprising considering the film that we're talking about next. And yeah, that's really all I have to say about Color Out of Space. There's not much to get here, really. So if you want to watch this film, go ahead. Overall, I'll give it a 5 out of 10, because like I said, clearly a lot of effort and talent went into making the practical effects for it, the makeup and everything. But otherwise, it's just kind of a wet blanket of a movie. I was kind of bored. And in terms of Nick Cage, we'll go with a 4, honestly. 4 out of 10 on Nick Cage on this one. Sure, he yells, but it's not funny, it's just cringe. And now we come to the third film that we're going to be talking about today, which is Willy's Wonderland. So, I watched this film with someone else, and as I was watching it, I knew I was going to talk about it on the podcast, but I knew that I would not be able to talk about it alone without developing severe hemorrhaging in my brain. So we're joined here today by my good friend, Mr. Tristan. Tristan, how you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm doing fucking awful, because I watched Willy's Wonderland, but, that's okay. I guess we can talk about it, man. So, let's
First impressions?
Yeah, what do you think of the film?
Oh, I thought it was awful. It was bad. It was not enjoyable. It's not like it's so good. So bad it's good. It's just bad. It's just not good. Like, there's no words. I guess there are words, but just like there's so much going on that just makes it so horrible. Like, some factors be like, hey, yeah, it's got some bad factors and some of them are good. There's just no good about this movie. I mean, maybe a couple jokes that I found funny, I think, is all it's got going for me. But yeah, overall, it's a thumbs down for me.
Yeah, I feel exactly the same way, except there really wasn't anything good or funny to laugh at in it. I mean, we laughed a few times, but that's because when we watched it, we were
exhausted.
We were hot off the coattails of a John Wick marathon.
Yeah.
It was like 6 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
And it was a nightmare. And as a result, I don't even really remember much about this movie. I was talking about The Color Out of Space earlier in the podcast, and I don't remember much about that movie because I watched it a year ago and I didn't bother to rewatch it. But with this, I watched it 2 days ago, and I still don't remember shit about it.
Yeah, and I've seen it twice, so if that says anything.
Yeah, you sat through this twice in a 24-hour period.
24-hour period. I watched it twice.
Fucking Christ.
At least the movie's short, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, it's 89 minutes.
Yeah, something like that.
So I guess what we can do here is we could just sort of break down the film from start to finish and give our thoughts along the way. So the movie starts, and what did it start with? It was like a commercial for Willy's Wonderland, which, I should probably explain the plot of this movie. So basically, there's this abandoned fun house, playhouse that's derivative of Chuck E. Cheese called Willy's Wonderland, and it was shut down because the animatronics were killing people.
They were murdering people.
Yeah, they were murdering kids. And the film starts with a sort of recap of that, I guess, in a very funny scene with a I guess not a main character, but a character being dragged away, and the guy gets dragged away, and there's literally nothing behind him that's even dragging him.
He's just getting dragged away. Nothing. And I'm like,
and then the film immediately. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I'm just thinking about the scene where they're like, yeah, the animatronics are saying weird things. They were speaking out of things that they'd never said before, and then one of them was like, "You want to fuck, fatty?" to one of the kids, and I'm like, what the fuck?
Oh no. Yeah, I mean, part of me thinks that this was supposed to be like a comedy.
Oh, so over the top comedy, it's not supposed to be scary.
But at the same time, it's like...
I don't.
Why would you go so far to have all the jump scares and shit, and the shit that is not good, that is there's a difference between making a movie that is so bad it's good, and then there's a difference between trying to make a movie that's so bad it's good. Yeah. Because if you're trying to make a bad movie, I mean, obviously you're gonna make a bad movie, but there's no heart to it. Like The Room, something The Room
has
something like
the. Because she's trying.
Yeah, The Room is the product.
This movie has no trying in it at all. You could definitely tell they don't give a fuck what happened to this movie.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, with something like The Room, there's the reason that movie is so awful is because the director was so disillusioned and just unfazed by the fact that he was making something terrible, and then you got something really great out of it. Yeah,
because it's he takes it so seriously, and then when you watch it, it's just not serious. It doesn't seem serious.
Yeah, exactly.
And so when he just speaks, you're just like, man, he's really trying to make something here, but it's just flopping and it's funny.
Oh, I just love to watch shit burn.
Yeah.
But this doesn't even burn. It fizzles out, and then occasionally there's a couple of sparks, I guess. So the opening happens, and it cuts immediately to Nick Cage's character. Does he even have a name?
I don't believe so. Let me check. You can keep talking while I check real quick.
Yeah, Hayden, cut this out actually, because I'm gonna look up the movie too. The janitor. He's just known as the janitor.
It's not even a name.
So Nick Cage's character, the janitor, is driving really fast in a car and drinking an anonymous beverage called punch. And that's like one of the leading jokes, quote unquote, throughout the entire movie is that he loves his punch. I don't know if it's...
The joke only hits once for me with that. It's an ongoing one, and the only one that hits at me is when he's about to fight this monster. So basically the whole joke is he has to drink a punch when his timer goes off and play pinball for some reason. They don't even explain it, he just does it because it's like, oh, funny, random, whoa.
I think that...
He's about to fight a monster, and his timer goes off, so he just leaves this girl helpless to fight this monster, and just goes and drinks a punch and plays pinball. That's the one that hit for me, because I'm like, that's pretty funny.
See, like, I don't know if it's alcohol or if it's an energy drink.
He gives to the girl at the end, though. How could it be alcohol?
I don't know.
I think it's energy.
I guess it's an energy drink. And I don't know if they actually explain this in the movie, but I was reading up about it, and apparently the character is supposed to have like a form of nonverbal autism.
They never talk about that.
They never talk about that.
They never talk about that.
But I've seen several sources saying that. So
that doesn't make any. They don't even like hint at it though.
Yeah, I don't know. So Nick Cage is driving and his tires pop. So he has to go to this shitty town. Where the hell is it at? Where's the town even at?
Fuck. I remember them talking about, oh, in this town, whatever, fuck.
Whatever, fuck, Texas.
Yeah. Is it in Texas, you think?
I don't know. I mean, everybody's hick. Shit, man.
The dude also goes, my name's Tex, like Texas.
Yeah, Tex like the state or some shit. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not saying it doesn't matter, but so basically he's
It's actually not in Texas.
It's not in Texas.
It's in Hayesville, Nevada.
Nevada. Okay. So he goes to this town and he doesn't say anything, but oh yeah, that's like the whole thing. He's like a silent protagonist, but I guess the people just sort of were like, oh, hey, you need your car fixed or something, but you don't have money, you just have punch. So
no, that's not even it. That's not even it. What? I remember, so I didn't realize it the first time I watched it, but I watched it the second time and I noticed it. He goes to pay the dude with his card, and he goes, sorry, we don't take card here.
Oh.
And Nick Cage, he's like, we only take cash. And Nick Cage goes over to walk to an ATM, and the ATM doesn't work. None of the ATMs work in the whole town. And so he's like, yeah, I know a job you could do to get me to do this for you or something.
Oh.
Or something like that. Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Yeah, I totally missed that.
I missed that the first time viewing too, and the second time I watched it with my girlfriend, I was like, damn, what?
I mean, for a film with a plot as simple as this, I definitely did not understand anything that was happening. But basically, he gets a job because he doesn't have cash to fix his car, and so he needs to clean the abandoned Willy's Wonderland, and then cue the rest of the fucking movie taking place in this one arcade because they didn't have money for any other locations.
Can we talk about how shitty the arcade looks?
It looks pretty.
I get the point of being like, oh, it's like run down. It's supposed to be like this like cheap like cash grab of like an arcade, so kids like they get money off kids and stuff. But like, holy shit, this looks like nothing like and like a Chuck E. Cheese would look like. Yeah,
I mean, I used to live in Texas, and there was this like all-you-can-eat buffet, and it was a dingy ass place, but it looked pretty fucking cool, you know. Uh-huh. Like, sure, it was probably just like an embezzlement scheme, but like, it looked nice. So who gives a shit? And so like, when you have an arcade, I mean, I think it just comes down to the fact that they rented a warehouse and they had to build a set, but all they had was like card tables.
Card tables, and then they had like this like they just used like plywood made a like box and then filled it with a ball pit balls.
Yeah,
and, like the ball pit looks so depressing, and I'm like, what is this?
Yeah, it's like this movie was shot in the fucking back rooms or something.
But then there's like weird shots where like one of the first scenes where then when teenagers show up. The chick, I believe her name is Liv in the movie, or the main girl.
Yeah.
She goes into like this like enchanted fairy forest where one of the characters' theme is, and it looks like really nice.
Yeah.
Like, it's nice and like it's got neon lights. It's all like crazy looking, and then the main area is like, hey, card tables and folding chairs. Like what?
Yeah, it just looks totally out of place compared to the rest of the arcade. Okay, I think we need to get a move on here because we've been talking for 12 minutes. So basically he starts cleaning the arcade and the animatronics come alive. Ooh, spooky. So if you haven't noticed yet, this is obviously either a riff or a direct rip-off of Five Nights at Freddy's. It definitely uses that to its advantage because, scary animatronics. And I guess that would be pretty scary because playing Five Nights at Freddy's is scary in the moment because, loud noises and they look weird. But the animatronics in this movie just look like shit.
They look so bad.
They look horrible. They're not fucking scary in the slightest.
Like, there was better ways they could have come about it and just, like, maybe, like, made better costumes that were, like, just actual costumes instead of using CGI. Because the CGI... They didn't have enough money to pay people for CGI, apparently. Also, I read through all the credits at the end on my second time watching. And, like, all the CGI or, like, special effects people are just, like, Asian people.
Well, that's what...
is that normal? I was confused by that.
I mean, I guess they could have outsourced it.
Every single one.
They definitely could have outsourced all the work to a VFX company, which, I mean, most movies do, but, yeah, it could have been... non-American company.
Okay,
but
yeah, like the CGI was just the worst probably CGI I've seen in my life out of all movies I've seen. Not gonna lie, it's one of the worst CGI. Like for a movie that's pretty new, like this year came this year, looks really bad. Obviously, the budget wasn't that great, but still, they had to give Nicolas Cage's paycheck first before they could pay the CGI guys.
Well, the whole movie just looks really bad. I was talking about this when you and I were watching it. They shot the film on, like, anamorphic lenses. So, for those of you who don't know, an anamorphic lens it's a very wide angle, so it fits the 2:3:9:1 aspect ratio of, like, theater screens. So, it's very wide. And typically with a lot of movies that are letterboxed like that, they just shoot it in 16:9 and then crop it. But with this, they shot it with, like, actual anamorphic lenses, and you can tell... Because, whenever the camera pans, there's, like, screen distortion, and at one point, there's, like, a van in the side of the frame that gets, like, squished, and it looks really weird.
Squished. Oh, my God. Man. Watching this tired as fuck was the funniest thing, seeing that.
Oh, yeah. And, I mean, it's a nice visual touch, except in terms of actual, like, cinematography, this movie looks very cheap. It doesn't look like they really color-corrected the image at all. It just looks like they put a filter on it, which is very different. Yeah, I mean, it looks like about 4/5 of the budget went to Nick Cage, and then they had to make do with everything else.
Yeah.
But that's weird also because he has a producer credit on the film.
Yeah.
So I don't know what the fuck is going on.
Most of the money went to Nick Cage, and also much money went to getting the rights to Freebird by Leonard Skinner.
Right, yeah.
The money was like $10 for who could CGI it.
That was weird. They had to outsource all the CG to a click farm in Taiwan.
Yeah. That's what it seems like. Holy shit! Like I cannot stress enough how bad the CGI looks in this movie.
Yeah, it looks like when I was 8 years old and I had that phone app where it would make it look like planes were crashing or something, or like bombs were falling. Yeah. The CG oil and shit. So yeah, I'm trying to think of more shit to describe plot-wise, but that's pretty much it. Because
basically,
Nick Cage
he just goes on a rampage and kills all these animatronics, and then I guess the subplot is these teenagers show up to burn the place down, and they're like, "Oh shit, there's a guy inside still. We'll save him." And then they don't save him because he doesn't need to be saved. He can beat the shit out of these things. But anyways, they like fall in through the roof, which is.
Oh yeah, fucking one of the leads is played by a Vine star.
A Vine star.
Oh no. Yeah, I mean, there's really not much else to dissect here. If there's one thing that I wanted out of this movie, it was like some like creative kills, you know? But there wasn't really. It was just like, oh no,
Just
Nick Cage is being
smashing a
attacked.
robot.
Yeah, Nick Cage is being attacked by an animatronic, so he's just gonna fucking hit it.
He did pull a Mortal Kombat and pull out the ostrich's spine.
He did pull out the ostrich's spine and got covered in crude oil. But
Yeah. Can I talk about like my least favorite scene ever?
yeah, go for
in
it.
this movie is it's just like, I mean, I guess this goes along with like how they shot this movie. Like just the handhelds just don't look good. And the scene where he fights the gorilla in the bathroom, the shots look horrific because it's just like a POV of you're either the monkey or
Nick Cage. Yeah.
or viewing this, and the monkey coming at you is just like a super shaky camera, and the monkey's like shaking its face, and that's him attacking you. And it's like, what the fuck is this?
Yeah.
And the POV of you're the monkey looking at Nick, he's just grabbing you and just like, like, okay.
It's quite obvious that they either didn't block the scene, so they had no idea how to film it, or they didn't have the money to film it and make it look good. So they just like shake the camera a whole bunch. Nick Cage is like looking at the camera and it looks cool, but it doesn't look cool. It looks kind of dumb.
Like, I'm sure. I think there was a couple. Like, which animatronics were not CGI? I think the gorilla wasn't, right?
The gorilla wasn't, and the turtle wasn't, I don't think. And except for the end, the like one of the final shots of the movie.
when he gets fucking run over by a car and his
God.
bike is flying and it looks so bad.
It looked like a fucking PS1 game.
Say, so like the fairy bitch was like partially CGI, where her like mouth was CGI to make it look all like scary. But the rest of like her actual body wasn't, I'm pretty sure. Except for like her avoiding the chick in the fairy area. I remember her being all looking weird and like being all like a snake and slithering around. I'm like, what the fuck?
I don't know.
It's a fucking trip, man. It's a trip.
I was like dissociating while watching this, so I really.
Oh yeah, I was too, but I still noticed some things that were disgusting.
See, it's like I noticed things, and the only things that I really remember was shit that you and I talked about and laughed at, but everything else, it's sort of a big blur. It was like the one time back in December when I got really drunk and watched Power Rangers. All I remember is like still frames from that movie. I mean, I've seen the movie before, but from that particular viewing, I just remember still frames and like 2-second moments. I don't even remember if there was sound. And it's the same thing with this movie, except I was completely sober. I don't know what the fuck. I don't know what the fuck this movie is or who it's for. It's definitely not for me.
It's just also at the same time, it's like I'm surprised there's like a following for this movie, that people actually like this. There's like a group of people that severely enjoyed this movie.
Oh yeah, and I mean like it's got like semi decent critical reception. I mean, for a movie like this anyway.
Why? I don't know why.
Here we go. Critics' consensus on Rotten Tomatoes. Willy's Wonderland isn't quite as much fun as its premise would suggest, but it's still got Nicolas Cage beating the hell out of bloodthirsty animatronics, which is nice.
Then, those weren't that great. The kills were like kind of not satisfying.
They were really dull. Yeah, they were really dull. So, yeah, I don't know. I think we'll probably have to start wrapping this up because I could talk about this movie for like 3 hours, but
yeah. Just complained the whole 3 hours because this was such a fucking waste of time.
It was a big old waste of time. That's about the best.
Even then, it's short, and even then, it's still a waste of time watching this movie.
Yeah, I mean, it was well paced. I mean, I didn't really feel the runtime, but
because it's short, so if things are always happening, it's like, oh, you don't really feel it.
But by the time it was over, I actively wanted to like go to bed. And not just because I was tired. It's like I wanted to wipe this from my memory.
Yeah. So overall consensus, what would you give this out of 10?
I'd give this movie a 1 out of 10. Although I'm rating the Nick Cage trilogy here in this episode differently on 2 different grading scales. So there's the overall rating and then the Nick Cage rating. So what I think of Nick Cage in the movie. So I'd give the overall. Yeah, I'd give the overall movie a 1 out of 10. But in terms of Nick Cage, I mean, I guess he does a good job with the material that he has. And I guess I can't dog on him for that. What I can dog on is the fact that this whole movie is a big waste of time. Nothing interesting happens throughout the entire runtime. And all I wanted was some good gore, and there really wasn't any good, like, not even like good makeup or anything.
There's a scene where I believe the main animatronic, the ferret, is named Freddy.
Mm-hmm.
He's like the main one. He's like hacking and slashing at Nick Cage, ripping him open. And his shirt's torn, but there's like no like slash marks on his skin.
Oh yeah, yeah. The shirt's all ripped up, but there's no blood or anything.
There's no blood, and you're just like, oh.
Because it's like, well, we can only spray blood and crude oil on the actors before it starts to look a little weird.
We can only make CGI blood, and then we can't really do like makeup department making marks on him because that's too much.
Yeah, I mean, we could do like a red Sharpie, but
yeah, red Sharpie's like our best we can do. Maybe like a red pen even. I don't know. Anyone have a pen around here?
Anyone got a felt pen, a fucking black magic marker? Yeah. What about you?
Shit.
What did you think?
Overall, this movie I definitely give a 1 out of 10. It's probably one of the worst movies I've ever seen in my life.
But you watched it twice.
I watched it twice because my girlfriend wanted me to watch it with her again. Because I talked about it with her, and she's like, "Let's watch it." And I was like, "Fuck it, I'm exhausted. I don't really care." I watched it twice. I'll probably watch it a third time, honestly, because I want to just get drunk and watch this movie and see what I experience. But yeah, overall, what?
No, oh, sorry. I was just gonna say, yeah, you know, when Alec comes to town, if that ever happens, not gonna try and dox where I live. I could definitely see myself.
Yeah, he lives on a.
His address and zip code and PO box.
Yeah, 1 out of 10. I'd give Nick Cage's performance. I don't know, man. Like, it's just he doesn't talk, and there's not much emotion, anyways, with him. I'd give him like.
Doesn't talk.
A 3.
Okay, so you gave the movie a 1, and Nick. I don't even think I rated Nick Cage yet. I would give Nick Cage a 6 out of 10 in this movie.
Really?
Yeah. So to recap, I gave Mandy Nick Cage score a 9 out of 10. The movie overall 8 out of 10. Color Out of Space movie was a 5. Nick Cage was a 4. And he definitely does a better job in this than in Color Out of Space. He does ham it up despite not really having a single line. And again, I was talking about this earlier. Nick Cage works best when he's overacting if the character itself seems like it would be reasonable or at least realistic for the character to do so. So in Mandy, you can tell he's not quite a right guy. And then when his wife dies, he obviously goes off his rocker. And that's why he starts acting crazy. But in The Color Out of Space, he was just like a white bread dad. And he was just like a normal guy, and he's like screaming, and it didn't work. It was kind of cringe. But with this, you know, he beats the shit out of some things, makes some funny faces. Yeah, 6 out of 10 Nick Cage, but fuck this movie. I fucking hate it.
Fuck this movie.
Fuck this movie. And with that, ladies and gentlemen, 49 minutes later, that brings us to the end of this episode. If you enjoyed, be sure to hit that like button or follow the podcast on Spotify, download it, do whatever you do best, and leave a comment saying Five Night at Fred's. That's all I got. I'm dead. I'm out of it. Thank you all for listening. I'll see you in the next episode.